The Return of Sherlock Holmes, 1905, Episode 7, The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton. Welcome back, fellow detectives. We've encountered murderers, kidnappers, and violent criminals of every description. But today, we face something far more insidious. A man who kills without weapons, who destroys lives without ever raising his hand in violence, whose only tools are words and secrets. Have you ever wondered what kind of person could be more dangerous than a murderer? What if I told you that Sherlock Holmes himself considered one particular villain to be the most despicable human being in London? Worse than any killer, more evil than any thug. Prepare yourself to meet Charles Augustus Milverton, the king of blackmailers, a man so vile that even Holmes will be driven to break the law to stop him. Picture yourself at Baker Street on a cold January evening in 1899. You're reviewing case files with Holmes when Watson notices something peculiar. Holmes keeps glancing at a letter on his desk with an expression of pure disgust. "Something troubles you, Holmes?" Watson asks. Holmes picks up the letter as if it were contaminated. This missive is from Charles Augustus Milverton. He requests a meeting here tomorrow evening regarding a client of mine, Lady Eva Brackwell. The very thought of that man sitting in our rooms makes my skin crawl. You're surprised by the vehemence in Holmes's voice. He's usually so detached, so clinical about criminals. "Who is this Milverton?" you ask. Holmes's expression hardens into something approaching hatred. "He's the worst man in London, Watson. I would rather face armed assassins than negotiate with Charles Augustus Milverton." Think about this for a moment, detective. What kind of criminal could earn such loathing from Sherlock Holmes? A man who's faced Moriarty without flinching, who's tracked down murderers and terrorists without hesitation. Yet this Milverton clearly represents something that disgusts him on a fundamental level. "Milverton is a blackmailer," Holmes explains, his voice tight with controlled anger. "But not a common blackmailer who makes crude threats and demands immediate payment. No, he's refined the practice into an art form. He's a collector of secrets, a connoisseur of scandal, a merchant who deals in human misery with the cold calculation of a banker reviewing ledgers." Watson looks troubled. Surely the police could arrest him. Holmes laughs bitterly. "On what charges? Milverton never personally steals letters or documents. He employs servants, opens correspondence, cultivates informants. The actual theft is always done by someone else. A discharged maid seeking revenge, a jealous lover, a desperate gambler. Milverton simply purchases the information and then, with perfect legality, offers to sell it back to the victim." "And if they refuse to pay?" you ask, though you already suspect the answer. Holmes's face becomes grim. "Then Milverton publishes the letters, sends them to husbands or fathers or newspapers, and destroys lives with methodical precision. He's broken engagements, ruined marriages, driven men to suicide, and caused at least 3 women to die of shame and heartbreak. All perfectly legal, all conducted from his comfortable office with his pleasant smile and his cold, reptilian eyes. The next evening, Charles Augustus Milverton arrives precisely on time. The man who enters your sitting room is nothing like what you expected from Holmes's description. He's middle-aged, rotund, and prosperous-looking, with a round, smiling face and twinkling eyes. He could be a successful merchant or a kindly uncle, except for something unsettling about his smile, something predatory behind the affable exterior. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson," Milverton says cheerfully, settling into a chair without invitation. "How delightful to finally meet you. I've heard such fascinating things about your work." His voice is smooth, cultivated, almost hypnotic. Notice how he makes himself comfortable in their space, as if he owns it. This is a man utterly confident in his power. Holmes remains standing, refusing the courtesy of sitting with this visitor. "Let's dispense with pleasantries, Milverton. You're here about Lady Eva Brackwell. State your business and leave." Milverton's smile never wavers. So direct. "I appreciate that. Very well. I possess certain letters written by Lady Eva to a young man before her engagement to the Earl of Dovercourt. Imprudent letters, shall we say. Passionate declarations that her fiancé would find most disturbing. The Earl is a strict, conventional man, Milverton continues, examining his fingernails casually. If he were to see these letters, the engagement would be terminated immediately. Lady Eva would be ruined socially, her family disgraced. Such a pity, when it could all be avoided for a reasonable price. Watson can't contain himself. You're threatening to destroy a young woman's life over love letters? Have you no shame? Milverton turns his pleasant smile on Watson. Shame, Doctor. I'm simply a businessman. I paid good money for those letters, £700 to the woman who stole them from Lady Eva's writing desk. I'm merely asking £14,000 to return them. A fair markup, wouldn't you say? £14,000, Holmes exclaims. Lady Eva doesn't have access to that kind of money. Her family is aristocratic but not wealthy. That's why her marriage to the Earl is so important. Milverton shrugs. Then she must find the money somehow or face the consequences. I have another buyer interested in the letters. Certain scandal newspapers would pay handsomely for such juicy material. Holmes leans forward, and you can see him struggling to control his temper. Milverton, you're a devil. You destroy lives for profit without a shred of conscience. The blackmailer's smile broadens. My dear Mr. Holmes, I'm simply providing a service. People write foolish letters, commit indiscretions, and then wish to avoid the natural consequences. I give them that opportunity, for a price. Look at it from my perspective, Milverton continues, warming to his subject. I invest capital in acquiring valuable information. I maintain a large staff of servants, correspondents, and informants. My business has overhead costs. Naturally, I must recoup my investment with reasonable profit. It's simple economics. Think about the twisted logic here, Detective. Milverton has convinced himself that he's a legitimate businessman, rather than a parasite who feeds on human weakness and fear. He's rationalized his evil into something respectable. What does it say about a person who can destroy lives while maintaining such a pleasant demeanor? Holmes tries to negotiate. I can offer you £7,000, every penny that Lady Eva can raise. Take it and be done. Milverton shakes his head. Impossible. The letters are worth £14,000 to me, either from Lady Eva or from my alternative buyers. However, I'm willing to give her 1 week to raise the full amount. After that, the letters go to the highest bidder. And if she can't raise the money, Watson demands. Milverton stands, preparing to leave. Then the Earl of Dovercourt receives an anonymous package. Lady Eva's engagement is destroyed, and her reputation lies in ruins. Such is business, gentlemen. Good evening to you both. After Milverton departs, Holmes paces the room like a caged tiger. That man is an abomination. He sits there with his cheerful smile, discussing the destruction of a young woman's life as if he were selling insurance or calculating interest rates. I've dealt with murderers who had more humanity. Can't we do something? You ask desperately. Break into his house and steal the letters back? Holmes stops pacing, and something dangerous flickers in his eyes. That would be illegal, Watson. We would be no better than common burglars. But there's a tone in his voice that suggests he's seriously considering it. Over the next few days, Holmes investigates Milverton's life with obsessive thoroughness. He discovers that the blackmailer lives in a heavily secured house in Hampstead, maintains a staff of trusted servants, and keeps his most valuable documents in a safe in his study. Getting access to those letters would require nothing short of a burglary. I have a mad idea, Holmes finally admits to Watson. An illegal, dangerous, completely unethical idea that goes against everything I stand for as a consulting detective. Watson looks at his friend with concern. What are you contemplating, Holmes? I'm going to burgle Milverton's house, Holmes states flatly. I'm going to break into his study, crack his safe, and steal Lady Eva's letters. It's criminal, it's wrong, and I'm going to do it anyway, because sometimes the law is insufficient to prevent evil. Notice how conflicted he is, Holmes the law-abiding detective versus Holmes the man who cannot bear to see injustice go unpunished. Watson doesn't hesitate. If you're going, I'm coming with you. You'll need someone to watch your back. Holmes looks at his friend with genuine affection. My dear Watson, I shouldn't allow you to risk yourself like this. If we're caught, it would mean prison for us both. Watson smiles. Then we'd better not get caught. Holmes begins his preparations with the same meticulous care he applies to any case. He disguises himself as a plumber and gains access to Milverton's house under false pretenses, mapping the layout and studying the routines of the household. He befriends Milverton's housemaid, actually courting her under an assumed identity to learn the household schedule. "You're engaged to Milverton's maid?" Watson asks, appalled. Holmes looks uncomfortable. "It's merely a professional necessity. I need to know when Milverton will be alone in his study, when the servants retire for the night, which doors are locked. The engagement is a fiction I'll have to apologize for eventually." The night of the burglary arrives. A dark, moonless evening perfect for criminal enterprise. Holmes and Watson, dressed in dark clothing and armed with burglars' tools, make their way to Milverton's Hampstead residence. The house looms before them, a testament to the profits of blackmail. They slip into the garden and approach the study window, which Holmes has left unlocked during his previous visit as the false plumber. Inside, the house is silent, the servants retired to their quarters. So far, everything is going according to plan. Holmes works on the safe with practiced skill. Another surprise to you and Watson, who never imagined your friend possessed burglary expertise. "A consulting detective must understand all aspects of crime," Holmes whispers as he manipulates the lock mechanism, including how safes are constructed and compromised. The safe clicks open, revealing bundles of letters, photographs, and documents, the accumulated secrets of dozens of victims. Holmes sorts through them rapidly, searching for Lady Eva's correspondence, but before he can locate them, footsteps sound in the hallway. "Someone's coming," Watson hisses. Holmes gestures frantically toward a curtained alcove. "Hide! Quickly!" You and Watson press into the shadows behind heavy curtains, just as the study door opens and Charles Augustus Milverton enters, carrying a lamp. The blackmailer walks to his desk, completely unaware of the intruders hiding mere feet away. He sits down, lights a cigar, and begins reviewing documents. You hold your breath, terrified that any movement will give away your position. If Milverton discovers you, your careers and reputations will be destroyed. Then another set of footsteps approaches, lighter, more hesitant. A woman's voice calls softly, "Mr. Milverton, you asked me to come at this late hour. I have the money you demanded." She enters the study, a veiled woman in a dark cloak, elegant despite her obvious distress. Milverton looks up with that horrible, pleasant smile. "Ah, my dear lady. Do come in and close the door. We wouldn't want to disturb the household with our business discussion." The woman approaches his desk, her posture suggesting barely controlled emotion. "I've brought what you asked for," she says, her voice trembling. £10,000, everything I could raise. Please, give me the letters and let this nightmare end." Milverton takes the money, counts it leisurely, then shakes his head. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. The price has increased to £15,000. Market conditions, you understand." "But you promised." The woman's voice rises in desperation. "I've sold everything I own, borrowed from friends, mortgaged my house. I have nothing left." Milverton's smile doesn't waver. "Then perhaps you should find a wealthy friend who can provide the additional $5,000. Or perhaps you'd prefer I send the letters to your husband." Can you feel the sadistic pleasure he takes in this, detective? The way he savors her desperation, extends her suffering, increases the price at the last moment just because he can. This is evil in its purest form, cruelty for profit, suffering as entertainment. The veiled woman stands very still for a moment. Then she speaks in a different voice, harder, colder, controlled. "You destroyed my life 5 years ago, Mr. Milverton. You sent my letters to my husband, caused my marriage to end, drove me from society. You said you'd destroy me, and you did." She throws back her veil, revealing a beautiful but haggard face that Milverton clearly recognizes. His smile falters. "Lady Sophia, but you have nothing left that I want. Why would you—" His words are cut short as the woman pulls a small revolver from her cloak. "This is for every life you've ruined," she says calmly. "For every woman you've driven to suicide. For every family you've destroyed." She fires 5 shots in rapid succession. Milverton jerks with each impact, his chair rolling backward, his pleasant smile finally permanently erased from his face. Holmes starts to move, but Watson grabs his arm, holding him back. They watch in frozen horror as Lady Sophia stands over Milverton's body, ensuring he's dead. Then she drops the revolver, turns, and walks from the room with the same dignified bearing she entered with. Moments later, chaos erupts in the house. Servants rush toward the study, drawn by the gunshots. Holmes and Watson seize their chance, slipping out the study window and fleeing into the night. Behind them, you hear screams as the household discovers Milverton's body. Back at Baker Street, hours later, they sit in stunned silence. Watson finally speaks. "We witnessed a murder, Holmes. We should report it to the police." But Holmes shakes his head slowly. "I saw a woman execute justice against a monster the law couldn't touch. Lady Sophia was one of Milverton's victims. He destroyed her life years ago, and she's been planning her revenge ever since." "She murdered him in cold blood," Watson protests, though his voice lacks conviction. Holmes meets his gaze steadily. "Yes, and I feel no obligation to help the police catch her. Milverton was a cancer on society, destroying lives with legal impunity. That woman did what the justice system couldn't. She removed him permanently. Think about what Holmes is saying here, detective. He's choosing not to report a murder he witnessed. He's letting a killer go free because he believes the victim deserved to die. Is this justice or vigilantism? Where's the line between the two?" The next day, Inspector Lestrade visits Baker Street, hoping Holmes can help with the Milverton murder investigation. "Nasty business," Lestrade says. "The man was shot 5 times at his own desk. No signs of robbery. His safe was open, but nothing appears to have been taken. We're completely baffled." Holmes listens with apparent interest. "Any suspects?" Lestrade shrugs. "Milverton had hundreds of enemies, people he'd blackmailed over the years. It could be any of them. We're interviewing everyone who had grudges against him, but that's practically half of London society." "I'm afraid I can't help you, Lestrade," Holmes says smoothly. "The case is outside my area of expertise." After the inspector leaves, Watson looks at his friend. "You lied to him." Holmes nods without remorse. "I did, and I would do it again. Some crimes deserve to be punished, and some deserve to go unsolved." In the weeks that follow, the police investigation into Milverton's murder produces no arrests. Lady Sophia is questioned along with dozens of others but is never seriously suspected. The case grows cold, eventually filed away as an unsolved murder, one of the few in London that Sherlock Holmes could have solved but chose not to. Watson records the case but keeps it unpublished during Holmes's lifetime, recognizing that it reveals his friend's willingness to obstruct justice when he believes a higher justice has been served. "You broke the law that night," Watson tells Holmes years later. "We committed burglary and we let a murderer escape." Holmes doesn't deny it. "I did what I thought was right. The law is supposed to protect people, but it failed to protect Milverton's victims. When legal means are exhausted and evil continues unchecked, sometimes illegal means become necessary. I'm not proud of what I did, Watson, but I don't regret it either." "What about Lady Eva's letters?" you ask. "Did you find them in the safe?" Holmes shakes his head. "In the chaos, I couldn't locate them. But fortunately, Milverton's death solved the problem more permanently than any theft could have. His safe's contents were eventually acquired by Scotland Yard and discreetly returned to their original owners. Lady Eva married her earl and never knew how close she came to ruin. So tell me, detective, do you believe Holmes was right to let Lady Sophia escape? Could you have reported her to the police after witnessing Milverton's evil firsthand? And what does this case teach us about the limits of law and the nature of justice? This dark and morally complex case reminds us that sometimes the law and justice are not the same thing. Charles Augustus Milverton operated within legal boundaries while destroying lives with systematic cruelty. His death was murder, but it was also the only way to stop him from creating more victims. It also reveals something profound about Sherlock Holmes's character. Beneath his logical, scientific exterior lies a man with a strong moral compass who's willing to break the rules when those rules fail to prevent evil. He's not just a detective mechanically applying laws. He's a human being making difficult ethical choices in situations where no choice is entirely right.